evening, dear ones. We are going to begin this Kirtan shortly, but we have to finish getting set up. Good evening, everyone. We're going to begin this Kirtan with a prayer, and then I'll say a few words about chanting. Not very many, because chanting is about chanting, but then we'll begin.
Let's offer a prayer together. Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
our friend, beloved God,
our friend, beloved God,
great masters, Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Krishna Babaji,
Krishna Babaji,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
Swami Sri Yukteswar,
and our Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda,
Paramhansa Yogananda,
and all saints and sages.
and all saints and sages.
Reverently we bow before you all.
Reverently we bow before you all.
We offer ourselves.
We offer ourselves
as your instruments.
As your instruments
Of love and blessing in this world.
Of love and blessing in this world.
Sing through us.
Sing through us.
Through our hearts and voices.
Through our hearts and voices.
In blessings to others.
In blessings to others.
We are your children.
We are your children.
Receive us.
Receive us.
Om.
Om.
Peace.
Peace.
Amen.
Amen. We invite you to join us in chanting this evening. We'll sing various chants of Paramhansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda and a few traditional Indian chants. And these give us the opportunity to dive into a deeper reality inside. Nirmala's prayer just now spoke to the essence of this. We are instruments. That you'll see that we have a harmonium, keyboard, and also a guitar that we'll be using for the chanting. And those obviously are musical instruments, but our bodies themselves are instruments. And yes, when we use our voices for singing, we become another musical instrument. But in the broader scheme of life, we become an instrument for the music of God's love or God's joy playing through us. And so this evening, we're inviting that melody, inviting that harmony to flow through us. And we're inviting the vibrations of these chants, which are very much alive and very much divinely inspired, to move through us. And I would invite you, as we chant, to sing the words out loud, if you can comfortably do that in the place where you are. And even if you can't sing out loud, then sing inwardly, but project the vibrations beyond just the room or the home or the place where you are. Project them out into the world. Feel that you too have a microphone, and that microphone connects to a sound system that encircles this world. And so that this energy, in a loving way, not in an obtrusive way, but just in a loving and supportive way, vibrates around the world to help people everywhere who are challenged, who are suffering, who are uncertain, etc. When a chant finishes, there will be a natural pause. This is not just for us to reorganize our instruments, get our music, etc. This is also for us, all of us, to internalize the vibration and the energy of the chant. So take that moment. I've sometimes compared kirtan and chanting to yoga postures, but for the heart, or yoga postures for the musical instrument of our bodies and our lives. And so in a yoga posture session, we will do a posture, we'll go into a certain stretch, there will be a certain exertion, a certain focus brought by that posture. And then at the end of that posture, there will be a little pause before we go on to the next posture. So similarly with a kirtan, take the little silent space in between the chant to feel deeply, what did this chant do? How does my body, my heart, my life feel as a result of the chant? The chants move our molecules around. They really get in amongst us in a literal, physical, and vibrational way. Let that energy move through in blessing to other people, not in an overt way necessarily, but in an inward way. Feel that energy moving through our voices and our lives. So we'll start now with Yogananda's translation of a chant from India called "Oh God Beautiful." In Hindi, it's "Hey Hari Sundara," and we won't sing the Hindi tonight, but God in nature and God in all human endeavor and inspiration.
Oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful. At thy feet, oh, I do bow. At thy feet, oh, I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful, oh God, beautiful. In the forest thou art green, in the forest thou art green, in the mountain thou art high, in the mountain thou art high, in the river thou art restless, in the river thou art restless. In the ocean thou art great. In the ocean thou art great. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. To the service, for thou art service. To the service, for thou art service. To the lover, thou art love. To the lover, thou art love. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the yogi, thou art bliss. To the yogi, thou art bliss. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. In the forest thou art green. In the forest thou art green. In the mountain thou art high. In the mountain thou art high. In the river thou art restless. In the river thou art restless. In the ocean thou art great. In the ocean thou art great. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. To the service, O thou art service. To the service, O thou art service. To the lover, thou art love. To the lover, thou art love. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the yogi, thou art bliss. To the yogi, thou art bliss. O God, beautiful, O God, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. In the forest thou art free. In the forest thou art free. In the mountain thou art high. In the mountain thou art high. In the river thou art restless. In the river thou art restless. In the ocean thou art great. In the ocean thou art great. O God, beautiful, O God, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. To the service, for thou art service. To the service, for thou art service. To the lover, thou art love. To the lover, thou art love. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the yogi, thou art bliss. thou art bliss. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. In the forest thou art green. In the forest thou art green. In the mountain thou art high. In the mountain thou art high. In the river thou art restless. In the river thou art restless. In the ocean thou art great. In the ocean thou art great. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. To the service, O thou art service. To the service, O thou art service. To the lover, thou art love. To the lover, thou art love. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the yogi, thou art bliss. To the yogi, thou art bliss. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God. To the service, O thou art service. To the service, O thou art service. To the lover, thou art love. To the lover, thou art love. To the sorrowful, to the sorrowful, thou art sympathy. To the yogi, thou art bliss. To the yogi, thou art bliss. O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful, O God, beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. At thy feet, O I do bow. O God, beautiful, 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 O King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. Joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. O thou King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. In joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. O thou King of the infinite,
O thou King of the infinite,
I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. In joy and in more joy,
thy light of day. O thou King of the infinite,
O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy,
thy light of day.
O thou King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light and mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. O thou King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. O thou King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy. O thou King of the infinite, O thou King of the infinite, I behold thee in samadhi, I behold thee in samadhi, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy, in joy and in more joy, in thy light of mellow joy.
I want only thee. Just give me a moment. So we'll sing, I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee. And after this, we'll have a short meditation, just a few minutes. Give me a sec.
I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee. 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 I want only thee, Lord, thee, only thee.
I want only
Thee, only thee. I want only thee, Lord, 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 thee, only thee. So now I'm going to tell you a story, maybe two stories. And these are stories that Swami Kriyananda used to tell quite often in the early days of Ananda. And so I think of them as sort of foundational stories of our path. They portray concepts that are really central to our path. This first one is about a king who lived long ago in ancient India, and he had a court with many, many people. And out of all of them, there was one man, a minister in his government, that the king was very fond of. And this man was very deep spiritually and a great friend to the king. And they spent a lot of time out riding through the kingdom together. And the other people in the court were a little jealous, shall we say, of this friend of the king because he was clearly the favorite. He had the king's attention, he had the king's ear, he could make things happen, and not everybody was happy about that. So as time went on, the whole court was out one day on a hunting trip, and there was an accident, and the king was wounded in his hand, and he ended up losing a finger. Well, the minister friend was off in another area, and when he heard about the accident and the king losing a finger, he said, well, everything happens for the best. And this is something that he often said when things happened. It's probably for the best. Everything happens for the best. Well, when he said it this time, in regard to the king's injury, his enemies went running to the king and repeated this to the king. And the king, who was in a great deal of pain, was angered that his friend would take his pain so lightly. And he fumed about this, and finally, in a rage, he just said, throw him in the dungeon. And so the friend was taken and thrown into a dungeon. Well, as the weeks went by and the king's injury began to heal and he didn't have as much pain, he felt a lot of remorse that he had and loneliness that he had lost this great friend. He'd put him in the dungeon and he couldn't figure out a way to gracefully get a reprieve for his friend, and so he sank into a depression. And one day the king went out riding by himself, and he was so distraught and not really watching where he was going very well that he went outside the border of his kingdom, wandered into another wild area, and he was set upon by dacoits, by robbers. And these robbers bound him and carried them back to their chief. And the chief said, it's time for a sacrifice to our gods. And so they took the king and they bound him and they prepared him for sacrifice. And as they were just about to lead him to their temple to be sacrificed, one of the priests noticed, wait a minute, this man is missing a finger. We can't sacrifice an imperfect sacrifice to our gods. And so they let the king go. He finally made it back to his castle, and excitedly he called the guards to bring up his friend from the dungeon. And he said, "My friend, I am so grateful and so happy to see you. What you said is true. Everything does work out for the best. Because I was missing a finger, I was not killed. I was able to come home and be alive. But what about you? You spent all those weeks in the dungeon." And his friend said, "Well, my lord, if I hadn't been in the dungeon, I would have been out riding with you, and I'm not missing a finger." And so we see, and Swami would illustrate how even the things that seem the worst in life, somehow, if we love God and we try to do what is right and what God's will is for us, everything works out for the best. And I'll tell you one more story. And this one, when we traveled with Swami Kriyananda back in 1979 on a lecture tour throughout America and uh, several cities also in Canada. What would happen was we would have a couple of songs at the beginning, and a small group of us, myself and Prem came also when he was just 11 years old. Um, we would sing some of Swami's songs, and then for 2 or 3 minutes, and then Swami would lecture for an hour and a half. And then at the end of songs, people would say the lecture. They would say, "Oh, we like the music," and he would joke that I talked half. But of course, he was very glad for that because the music gets in on deeper levels than just the mind, and it touches the heart. Anyway, this story Swami told over and over. I just love this story on that lecture tour. It was a favorite. So the story goes that the Lord, in the form of Vishnu, the preserver, later in incarnation Krishna, had a great devotee named Narada. And one day, Narada and the Lord were walking in a sort of high desert area, just talking and being together and bliss, just very, very happy. And Narada said to the Lord, "I don't understand the power of Maya because it's so obvious that we are one and my love for you is so great. What is it that could possibly draw people away from that oneness in God?" And the Lord said, "Well, I will explain it to you, Narada, but first, I'm very thirsty. Do you think you could fetch me some water, maybe from that village over there?" And Narada said, "Of course, Lord, I'll be right back." So Narada went over to across the sand and knocked on the first door that he came to. And the door was opened by this incredibly beautiful young woman. And when Narada looked into her eyes, he felt as though he had known her forever. She was just the incarnation of sweetness and kindness and compassion. And he told her he was looking for water, and she invited him in, and he met her family, and he stayed for the evening meal, and then they invited him to spend the night. And the next morning he went with the girl's father into the little town and helped her father with his business. And soon this became a routine, and he was helping every day with the family business and staying there in the home. And not too long afterwards, he and the girl were married. And soon they had a child, and then another child, and another. And as the years went by, Narada was supremely happy with this beautiful family that he had found. And they ended up having another child, 4 children. But then one day, a flash flood came down through the mountains and wiped out the town. And he heard the screaming and went out to see what was going on. And then he quickly came to his wife and his children, gathered them up, and they tried to make it up a mountain out of the way of the floodwaters. And his wife carried their new baby. He had 2 children, one in each hand, and the fourth child clinging to his back with his arms around his neck. And they were struggling over the rocks as the water was lashing up at them. And soon the water overpowered them, and he he was struggling along, and he saw that his wife with their new child swept away down the mountain. And in his agony to try to catch her and save her, he let go of one of the children, and the baby slipped off his back, and the other child was lost, and his whole family was swept away. And in his agony, he allowed himself to be taken by the floodwaters. And he slipped into unconsciousness. And then, little by little, he realized he was not dead. He was still aware. And the waters all around him seemed to recede. And he noticed that it wasn't water after all, it was sand. And he looked up and he saw Lord Vishnu looking down at him, shaking his head. And the Lord said, Narada, Narada, half an hour ago I sent you for water, and now I find you sleeping in the sand. So that story shows us the nature of this illusion. It seems so real. It seems so vital. And it seems as though it's the only reality. But the teachings of the masters, the teachings of yoga, show us that only God is real. And our purpose in this life is to remember who we really are and reunite with that spirit that is the only reality.
So I will also tell a couple of little stories, and I'll invite Nirmala to come up here and work the camera. The couple of these are related to the chant that we opened this evening with, O God Beautiful, He Hari Sundara. And the first one is a story that Swami himself would tell. The second one is one that relates to that chant, but actually involves Swamiji. Swami took a trip to India back in the 1970s. And during that trip, he was in the New Delhi area and was driving in a taxi cab with a taxi driver, a Sikh fellow with a turban. And in India, every taxi that I ever saw, and as far as I know, every taxi period, has some kind of altar in the front of it. It can be a little crucifix and a little, Virgin Mary. It can be Ganesh. It can be, in his case, being a Sikh fellow, he had a picture of Guru Nanak there. And depending on who the driver is and what their spiritual inclinations are, you always see some spiritual element. I don't know if I ever saw a taxi that didn't have that in it. And so Swamiji got to talking with this fellow in the taxi and commented to him that, we love to sing this chant of Guru Nanak, because in fact Yogananda translated that chant, brought it to English from the Hindi and the Punjabi, and he said, we love to sing this chant. And the taxi driver looked at him and immediately responded and said, what else would life be if we could not sing to God? And Swamiji said he was so touched by that, and he would get choked up when he was telling this story, because here's just a taxi driver. And you think of a New York taxi driver, or, you just think of sort of what you get in a busy city somewhere else. You don't necessarily get that. And he just appreciated the fact that this singing to God, if we couldn't sing to God, why would we bother being here in this world? It's such a sweet image, and it's one of the gifts that India gives to the world, has given to the world, is that intimacy with God, that sense of connectedness and presence. The second story again relates to that chant, but this one involves Swamiji himself. And depending on how much time we have, I may try something here off script, but the setting was this. We were new in India. We had begun filming television programs for one of the spiritual networks in India, of which there are several. And Swamiji was recording recording programs. It started off being just a few, and then it worked into being 365 programs around the book, Conversations with Yogananda. And he would begin with a sloka, a little chant of some kind, often in Sanskrit. But one particular day, he sang this chant a cappella, He Hari Sundara. And he just sang, He Hari Sundara, He Hari Sundara, just like that. Sang through the whole chant in Hindi. And there was a crew of cameramen and a producer and various people operating equipment all jammed into his little tiny living room, which is really not much bigger than the room that we're sitting in. And there were 15 or 20 of us all crammed in there. I mean, there was hardly room to breathe in that space. And of course, we had to all be perfectly silent because 3 cameras were rolling and the switching equipment and all of this stuff. So anyway, Swamiji's goal in those days was to film 5 to 10 programs that all lasted around 15 minutes, 15 to 18 minutes, depending on how long the little chants were. There were songs matched up with some of them and so forth. It was a whole complicated arrangement. Anyway, at the end of a day of filming, and his health was not good. The air was bad. His breathing was challenged. His health was just challenged, period, basically. He was tired. He was almost 78 years old at the time, I believe. And so here we were. This was early 2004, January, early February 2004. And at the end of this day, the cameraman said, "Swamiji, I want a recording of you singing that chant, Hey Hari Sundara." And Swamiji said, "But I filmed it. I mean, it's, he had done it earlier in the day and in other words, you have it," was his basic response. And then there was this pause and the guy he didn't want to push, but he did want to push because he wanted that recording and he wanted it in his phone. He wanted to have it with him. He wasn't going to leave this to chance. I mean, once those films went out the door, all bets were off as far as this cameraman was concerned. He wanted that chant. And Swami sort of sized this up and he realized that, it's 3 minutes out of my life for this guy, but he was tired, but he did it anyway. And we have that recording and it is so sweet. And I'm tempted to just play it for you. I'm gonna just hold the phone near my heart here such that oh, God help me that I can find it quickly now. Well, oh dear. Maybe not.
Do you want me to play a chant while you look?
No, I'm going to tell another story while I look. And this is also related to Oh God Beautiful. Let me just try one more search here. Oh, this is just being a rascal. I was sure I had it in here. Okay, well, the third story is Yogananda wanted to sing this chant at Carnegie Hall in 1926 when he was on one of his major lecture tours around America. And his staff, his advisors, the people around him organizing events and so forth, told him essentially, look, this is New York, this is the public, this is America. They're not going to get this chanting stuff. This is like a little over the edge. And I'm paraphrasing. Go back to 1926 terms, inappropriate or not proper. And Yogananda said, music is a universal language. And I am convinced that people will get this. And he sang that chant for an hour and a half or an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. And people's lives were changed. People were healed. People were completely transformed. People were weeping, and he chanted that continuously for that hour and a half or hour, whatever it was, a long, long time. And so, indeed, music is a universal language, and it's just, if you'll let me get off camera, I can play it off of that computer, and I think we could pull it off that way.
How about if I do a chant while you find it?
Okay.
Okay.
But it's going to be really fast when I find it.
Okay.
Because I know I can find it there. So give me a sec. You could. Okay, so this is the chant. And
Yeah, it was a bit scattered. I don't know. What do you think?
So that's Swamiji talking.
Huh?
This is the guy asking.
You want that? You want it again? For you. But you have it on that recording. Yeah, I'll think. I'll think because. Hey Hari Sundara, hey, huh?
He has to get his phone out and get it ready to record.
It's तुम्हारे के लिए.
And then he speaks Hindi back.
Start. Hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara. Tere charan par shirsha namaon, tere charan par shirsha namaon. Hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara, hey Hari Sundara. Bano bano mein shamal shamal, bano bano mein shamal shamal. Giri giri mein unnata unnata, giri giri mein unnata unnata. Sarita sarita chanchala chanchala, sarita sarita chanchala chanchala. सागर सागर गंभीरा है, सागर सागर गंभीरा है. हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर. तेरे चरण पर शीर्ष नमाओ, तेरे चरण पर शीर्ष नमाओ. हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर. सेवक जनों के सेवा सेवा कर, सेवक जनों के सेवा सेवा कर. प्रेमी जनों के प्रेम प्रेम कर, प्रेमी जनों के प्रेम प्रेम कर. दुखी जनों के वेदना भेदना, दुखी जनों के वेदना भेदना. जोगी जनों के आनंद है, जोगी जनों के आनंद है. हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर. तेरे चरण पर शीर्ष नमाऊं, तेरे चरण पर शीर्ष नमाऊं. हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर, हे हरि सुंदर.
So sweet to hear him sing that.
I hope you could hear that. I think you could, but what I was seeing led me to think it was coming through okay. So anyway, so sweet. You could hear his voice kind of choking up there toward the end when he got to the
to the lover,
to the
art
lover
love.
thou art love, to the sorrowful thou art sympathy, to the yogi thou art bliss. You really got choked up on that line, and just so dear. Anyway, it was just a special moment we wanted to share. Let's sing Hey Bhagavan, or no, Sri Ram. You were going to do Sri Ram.
Okay.
Hang on one second.
This is a traditional Indian chant.
Okay.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai 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 Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, 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 Shri Ram, Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, 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 Jai Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama.
This next chant is, O thou blue sky, under blue cover hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts.
O thou blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord? O thou blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord? Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. O thou blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord, on a blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. O thou blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. O thou blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. O the blue sky, blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. O the blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. O the blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. O the blue sky under blue cover, hast thou hidden my beloved Lord. Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. 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 Open thy cover, let me discover. Open thy cover, let me discover my beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts. My beloved Lord in thy heart of hearts.
Thou art my life, thou art my love, thou art the sweetness which I do seek.
Thou art my life, thou art my love, thou art the sweetness which I seek. Thou art my life, thou art my love, thou art the sweetness which I seek. In the thought by my love, in the thought by my love, I taste thy name, so sweet, so sweet. Everything knows how sweet you are. Everything knows how sweet you are. He knows me better. He knows me better. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. In the thought by my love, in the thought by my love, I taste thy name, so sweet, so sweet. Everything knows how sweet you are. Everything knows how sweet you are. He knows me better. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. In the thought by my love, in the thought by my love, I taste thy name, so sweet, so sweet. Everything knows how sweet you are. 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 He knows me better. He knows me better. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. In the thought by my love, in the thought by my love, I taste thy name, so sweet, so sweet. Everything knows how sweet you are. 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 He knows me better. He knows me better. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I receive. Thou art my life, thou art my life. Thou art the sweetness which I
This chant was written in Italian and seems appropriate to sing it once in Italian. Dio nella notte, Lord when in darkness. But I'll sing it in English after that. And feel these words. This is for many people around the world, this is a time of uncertainty and challenge, and this chant addresses that. Dio nella notte, Dio nel buio, seguirò sempre te. Dio nella notte, Dio nel buio, seguirò sempre te. Quando mi perdo, quando piango, so che tu sei con me. Quando mi perdo, quando piango, so che tu sei con me. Vivo solo per amarti, oh Signore. Vivo solo per amarti, oh Signore. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Dio nella notte, Dio nel buio, seguirò sempre te. Dio nella notte, Dio nel buio, seguirò sempre te. Quando mi perdo, quando piango, so che tu sei con me. Quando mi perdo, quando piango, so che tu sei con me.
Vivo solo per amarti, oh Signore. Vivo solo per amarti, oh Signore. Vivo solo per amarti, oh Signore. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend.
Let's close now by sending out blessings, healing energy, peaceful, harmonious vibrations of divine love and light into the world through the vibrations that move through our voices and our hearts. You can rub your hands together and join me now in chanting Om as we send out waves of light into the world. Om. 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 God bless you all. We'll have another video posted tomorrow. Join us for Sunday service on Sunday morning, starting at 9 o'clock with the fire ceremony and 10 o'clock for the main Sunday service.